Hello, it's September 5th, 2022. It's been a little while since I did a walk around the garden, so I thought I might do one very kind of late summer here, going into the beginnings of fall. It's been pretty dry, so you'll see that some plants are starting to senesce and they're pretty much done growing, and the leaves are kind of maturing and starting to turn in some cases, especially where it's been dry. So here, the main road there is there. This is a slightly different spot that I normally start from. This area is looking lush. I want to show this peach tree here. Fucking idiots with their loud cars. Okay, so this peach tree, as many of you probably know, was an apricot tree. It was grafted onto a peach rootstock. The apricot part of it died, and so I let the rootstock grow for a number of years. And these are the peaches that it has. They're pretty good size. It's a late peach, and they're just starting to kind of ripen in the last few days, week or so. A few of them are falling off. There's just a little blush of color on some of them, but basically a yellow peach. And I forget the variety that this might be, but it was one that was commonly used as a rootstock. I don't know if it's clonally propagated or if it's from seed. There were a lot of seedling peach rootstocks used over the course of years, so we'll see. But the peaches are okay. They're not super duper sweet, but they're edible. Taste pretty good. Getting some damage on them. There's physical damage on some where they've kind of grown into something, and there's also stink bugs that are bothering them, and I'm not sure about deer or other things, but I thinned off the vast majority of these to give the ones that were here more space, especially because I knew it was going to be a dry summer. So that seemed to have been a good strategy, because the ones that are there are kind of ripening up pretty well now. So a cup plant is kind of finishing its flowering. There's a few echinacea still going. Green-headed coneflower is kind of in peak flower right now. Doing well here despite the drought, because this is an area that's got much richer soil than average on this site. So you see there's quite a bit of bee activity, or maybe you can't see, but there is. So we'll enjoy that. Those grew pretty tall, 6 to 7 or 8 feet. This quince tree has, I think, 3 fruit on it, and they're kind of starting to lose a little bit of the fuzziness that they had. Not getting very large. I probably should be giving this some more water, but you can see the fuzziness is kind of wearing off. This wildflower area fading back. There's not nearly as much of a show as there was a few weeks ago. And you can see things like this catalpa tree. The leaves are starting to turn yellow and show some stress. Almost looks chlorotic there, but I think it's just age. Little grafted pawpaw tree. These pawpaw trees, that one is showing some drought stress. Leaves are turning yellow prematurely. But yeah, this doesn't look that good. That gumi is looking bad all summer. There's some anise hyssop flowering. These cup plants are totally done. Monarda's done here. There's some apple mint flowering. The New England asters aren't really starting yet, but they will be anytime now. I've seen a couple odd ones here and there that are opening up. Here's a New England aster here. Purple flowers, those are a mainstay of the fall garden. We recently had to bury our kitty, 18 years old. Cream is what we called him. We adopted him when he was 15. Had 3 good years with him, but now he's laid to rest over here with our other 2 kitties, Tatsu and Yu. This pear tree's got a lot of fruit. A lot of it's not sized up that well. I think maybe I should have thinned more of the fruit off. There's a few up there that are pretty good size, but some of these down here are kind of on the small side. That's pretty small. See, one has fallen. So I probably should think about picking these pretty soon. I think this is a pear that it's the kind of European pear that it's better if you pick it and let it ripen off the tree for a time. If you let them get soft on the tree, they'll turn to mush and not be that great. This is kind of winding down. This is stiff goldenrod, and I've seen some interesting bugs on this recently. There was locust borer beetles on here the other day, which are a really beautiful yellow and black bug, but they're probably going to raise hell with my black locust trees. That hedgerow still looks like crap. It's growing slowly. This established hedgerow is doing okay. Hazelnut crop is not as heavy this year as it was maybe last year. It's okay, you know, every year is a pretty decent year for hazelnuts here, but maybe we'll see a few bushes that are standouts. Peach tree is done. Coming over here, these apple trees. Johnny Gold in the middle here looks half defoliated. It's got a hell of a lot of apples on it and not many leaves. So I don't know. This one, don't know the variety, but they're not very good apples. I need to trim a lot of these lower branches off because I keep running into them and it's super annoying. This is a Golden Delicious tree, and you can see there's some red apples up there. So that whole branch, I don't know if you can see, was a graft that was done and has a nice apple, pretty good tasting. I don't know if I can find one on the ground here, but I've been eating a few of them. Been thinking I'm gonna have to get my cider game in order here, because some years we have a good apple year, not very often, but every 5 years or so. And it would be nice to make better use of some of these apples that are not good keepers, and they're not, you know, I don't have the freezer space to freeze them. I don't really like apple pie that much, so I could make juice or cider or something. This is a John and Go red tree here that looks like hell. It's got southwest injury. I grafted several varieties onto this, and I can't really tell. I think there might be a couple different varieties fruiting on there, but my tags are all long gone. Here's a New England aster. That's what they're going to look like. So in a couple weeks, this whole garden will be full of those things. Nursery area, not much to talk about there. These nursery beds, this elderberry is just going apeshit, growing out of the bottom of the box somehow. It rooted down and underneath, and so I couldn't yank it out of there this spring. Chestnuts look okay. There's some that have some discolored leaves, and then a lot of these persimmons also had discolored leaves, and I've yanked out some of the worst ones. But I've also put down some fertilizer and some earthworm compost or castings. See if I can remedy this. And these chestnuts, I just put down some acid-loving fertilizer for these, because I think these always look chlorotic, or at least half of them do. Not sure why. And these persimmons look pretty good. Got Nanking cherry there. There's some hickories in there. This bed's got these big tall willows that have probably grown 4 to 5 feet over the season. And they're looking good. Got some elderberries here looking good. Got some elderberries that are not looking that hot. Deer have browsed these some, but these, I'm kind of afraid to see what the root systems look like on some of these willows, if I'm going to be able to wrestle them out of these beds or what. It's pretty advanced growth. This elderberry, I've not harvested any of the fruit. Birds have probably taken some of it. But there's a few odd fruits here and there. This Tuna sinensis, Chinese tune tree, grew pretty well this year, maybe because I mulched this whole area in the spring, and that, you know, it's been there for probably 8 years or something, so it should have a decent root system. But it really grew pretty nicely this year. This was all kind of taken over by Monarda. Sorry, I'm kind of half choking on the smoke. My aunt's got a fire going next door. It's kind of annoying. Ugh. Okay, I don't think I'm gonna walk all the way over here. It's too long, there's not much to see. There's some shitty looking blueberry plants over there, and there's a few hazelnuts in the hedgerow that are okay. There's a couple nuts on some of them. Some of them look pretty good, but you can see some autumn olives. I've been eating autumn olives for the last couple weeks at least, and Jesus, some big bug just flew in my arm. Sorry. And so have the birds and the animals. Stink bugs have been onto them pretty badly. So some of the fruits are ruined by that stink bug action. This hazelnut, sorry if I keep coming back to this, but it's pretty impressive. This is a real heavy bearer, and these are not quite ripe yet, but they're getting there. Probably within a week or two I could harvest these. If I had squirrel pressure here, I could harvest these now and probably they'd be fine. But the husks are not really opening up yet, so ideally you want to wait till the husks will have some color, but then also the nuts inside will have some color, and that one looks pretty pale. You want them to be kind of tan or brown, and they're easier to get out of the husks. show you over here. These autumn olives were ripe like 2 weeks ago, but you can see, I don't know if you can see, but they're all kind of like crinkled looking, and they have issues. I think stink bugs have stung or fed on these in some way. This plant doesn't look as bad as that one. There's 3 grafts I did here this season. These are all pears. I think they're Ayers. Yeah, Ayers pear. And so that one looks pretty clean. This one looks pretty kind of nasty the way that overlaps. And this one, oh, it looks like I didn't remove the wrapping off this totally, but that one doesn't look that great either. But I've got good growth. I've got nothing else. I've got good scions for next season of grafting, because there's a lot of growth there, and some of it's superfluous. So if I had 2 buds that grew, and some of these grafts have two or 4 really nice buds. This one's kind of weak. It probably wouldn't be that good, but I could maybe get a stick or 2 out of that. So you can kind of see the beginnings of fall. You know, you've got seed heads on grasses. This big blue stem here. These are its little flowers. Those are still going, but a lot of the grasses have made seeds. The winged sumac is kind of turning colors. Got some colors in the serviceberry there a little bit. 9-bark hazelnut. This is kind of peak goldenrod season for the Canada goldenrod. I think that's what this is, the kind of weedy goldenrod. This hazelnut has a pretty good crop. Looks like a lot of small nuts. These aren't that big. Maybe you can see there, that's some very vigorous growth on a graft I did. I do 2 grafts here. So yeah, this is the graft union right here, and it's healed pretty well. And I've got some massive growth. I've probably got 4 feet or better. And I've got 2 thick, you know, this is actually almost too thick to use for scion wood, but anyway, I'm gonna have to cut one of these out because that crotch angle is terrible. And I don't need 2 trunks growing next to each other. So, and then I've got a graft here that also I should unwrap. But you know, here again, I've got a redundant growth, so that can become science for somebody else to graft. I probably have enough of that variety here on this plot. Let's see, I'll walk up here. This is kind of how things are looking. I wanted to do this today because it's nice and cloudy, which sometimes is a nicer lighting. And if you've got harsh shadows, makes a lot of glare that gets into the camera lens, which I don't like. So I've got my first nuts on this grafted chestnut from Dick Winkle. I think I planted this in 2018 or 17. It's not a huge tree. I was debating whether or not to even let this bear any nuts this year, but I think there's only 4 on the whole thing. But I'm excited to try those and see what they amount to. Have been mulching, you know, chop and drop mulching around a lot of my favored plants here. So this chestnut and some of the stuff, the grass is already kind of growing back through it. But this is a chestnut. This is an American hybrid chestnut from Hartman's Nursery. Looks like they're small nuts, small burrs. Tree's never grown that well. So if it has actual nuts this year, I'd be surprised. This will be the first year that it's really had any after 10 or 11 years in the ground. But anyway, excited to see what those are like. They look small like an American. So this wild crabapple tree, you can see all the little crab apples on it. And it's a mess. The form of it's a total nightmare. But over here and up here, you'll see there are much larger apples on there. And those are from a graft that I did, I think, 4, 5, 6 years ago. I don't know. I picked a couple of these up and ate them already, and they were a pretty good apple. They still have a lot of bug problems. You probably can't see very well, but they don't look that hot. But anyway, I should flag these branches while I can still tell what's what, and then come in here in the dormant season and prune off most of this, the crabapple root, or the branches of the crabapple, because that will focus more energy toward my good branches, and that'll be good. Get more fruit and less wildlife food. My pit has no water in it, not surprisingly. I've had to come back and water some stuff because it's been pretty dry here the last month or so. So you'll see some yellow ribbons around some trees. I forgot to point this out earlier, but some of my bigger black locust trees, like these tall trees in the canopy there, that cherry there that's tall in the canopy, I need to start cutting these things down to get more light for my intended orchard type crops here. So my chestnuts, my apple to a lesser degree, but mostly chestnuts back here are going to start needing more light. And so it's time to start harvesting some saw logs. Well, logs, not things that you would mill into lumber necessarily, but pole wood. So this black locust here, you know, that would become a nice fence post or two. But that's got to come out, and there's a couple nice ones there, one or two back there. So I will leave some of the smaller sprouts, like this little tree here. You know, maybe that could stay for another year or so, but I don't want to have too much shade back here now that some of my chestnuts are growing up. It would be good to get them some more light and release that canopy a bit. This barrel thing here, don't ask me why it's here. I think I thought about sitting on it or something, but it was elsewhere. Just moved it over here. These little black locusts have to come out of here too. They're kind of starting to interfere with this wildflower garden. So there's not much in flower here anymore, except the goldenrod, the Canada goldenrod. The prairie dock is done. Compass plant is done. It's starting to form seeds on this rosin weed. There's a little bumble. Got some honeybees down there and that. But yeah, we try to have bee food all the year through whenever things are growing. So here you can see cup plant flowers, and then the seeds of cup plant, as they dry down and mature, they're small, but goldfinches and other birds, that seed-eating birds, will come and eat those things, and they love them. You can see cup plant is storing some water there. Some old mulberries. This black walnut has a few nuts on it this year. If this thing's nuts are nothing special, I might consider cutting this down or something. It's kind of a nice trunk. It's not large enough to do much with, but really don't want to have a big walnut over here. It looks like I've got another one over there. That's on the neighbor's property. Nothing I can do about that, but you know, that juglone chemical influence is something that you have to think about in your garden, because those roots will go out, you know, 50 or 80 feet after that tree is larger. And that will maybe play havoc with some of my other things I'm trying to grow. I think chestnuts are supposed to be semi-tolerant of that. The chestnuts are the main thing I'm trying to grow here. So, speaking of chestnuts, this is I think it was sold as a Chinese hybrid chestnut. It's got some nice large burrs on it. This one came from Oikos. It's got a multi-trunked habit. This was a mistake. I accidentally left the cage around it for too long. You know, I had the cage to keep the deer off of it. But then I've got to do some serious pruning in here, because you can see this is not good. These are actually like fusing together. And maybe I could let it go and see what happens, but it could just kill the tree. I think in whatever happens, it's going to send up new shoots possibly. But yeah, I've got like a dead trunk there. I've got where the fence actually grew, where the tree grew around the fence there. So this tree, got a branch wrapping around there. Not the greatest pruning demonstration here. This is actually like what you shouldn't do probably. But this tree over here looks nice. This is my timber chestnut from Oikos. This is my largest tree that I've ever planted. Fastest, best growing tree. See what's under the canopy here. Got some nurse logs that are crumbling away with a couple mushrooms growing on them. But this trunk here, you know, is getting pretty substantial. That's probably 7 inches diameter at breast height there, maybe. I may limb this up a bit. But pretty good looking leaves. There are some nuts on here this year again. Last year it had a few. So that's a tree I'm excited about. Got 4 so-called Seguin chestnuts there. Some serious leaf problems on that one. This is also a multi-trunked tree. This is a chinkapin chestnut, and this has a lot of burrs on it, although I don't know how many are actually going to be filled. So you see there's some size differences here. I don't know if I shake this, if any will fall off, but these larger ones, I'm presuming, have a nut in them. The ones that are small, like this one, I don't know, maybe not. You know, some of these are quite small. So we'll see. That's mostly wildlife food anyway. Turkeys or grouse or something will probably love these, but there's quite a range of sizes. And then across the way here is another chinkapin chestnut tree, and this one also has a lot of burrs this year. You know, it's bearing pretty heavily. So I'm excited about these. And these actually have a cool geometric shape, and it's more evident on some than others, but it's sort of a conical shape, and if you see it at the right time, it's almost like a fractal pattern. These aren't really showing that so much, but in other years, at certain times of the growth pattern, I've seen a cool fractal pattern that was showing up. So yeah, again, these are probably, they're single nuts in each burr. We'll see. This, I don't know if this one's really borne nuts before that were viable. So we'll see. I'm excited to check them out. But yeah, nice chestnuts there. Got a nice self-seeded oak. It's a beautiful oak here. This does have a couple acorns on it, I think. It's got some galls on it too. These are some kind of an oak gall. I thought I saw, the leaves are kind of a little bit velvety underneath. Something in the white oak family, but there are so many hybrids. I'm trying to think if I see, oh, there's an acorn up there. Probably can't see it very well, but it's not a, yeah, it's about half covered by the cap. So we'll have to do some research and get the ID on that one. There's a young little chestnut there. There's some pecans here, pecan there, persimmon here, pecan. I'm not gonna walk down that path right now. Here again, these yellow marks mean that these trunks are gonna come down in the dormant season. I'll leave them for the winter, let the deer rub on them if they want to. Let them finish growing that much more, but this, you know, would have been a one trunk thing at one time, and it either got mowed or grazed, and it regrew as multiple trunks. And so this is what we have after like 12 years of not mowing. You know, you've got several substantial trunks here. These are probably 6 inches in diameter, some of them. But yeah, those we can harvest, and that'll give more light for this pecan tree here, which is growing okay, but it's growing at a really bad angle. It's like a 45-degree angle, so I have to stake it up and let it grow more straight so it can have a chance. Got some pawpaws over here. These are showing some drought stress. I'm not really going to bother showing those, but some of them are about this size, pretty small still. I don't think any of these flowered this year. That one's a little bit nicer, small one. There's a little bit better one back there. Catalpa tree here with a small pawpaw underneath. Gonna prune some of this catalpa back now to give this pawpaw more light, maybe next year. That one is a pretty good sized one, but it's needs more water and more fertility maybe. These black locusts, I pruned those up a little bit this spring, but I should keep pruning those, limbing those branches up to give me a nice pole to harvest at some point in the future. This is a witch hazel that I forgot about, but here it is. Cool. It just popped out. Haven't really noticed that in a year or two. Need to come around and mulch that and get some of the junk out of its way, let it have a little more light. But yeah, I knew I planted a witch hazel somewhere over here. It just revealed itself to me. Not too much to show here. This apple I've talked about many times before. Nothing too major on that. This graft, I kind of cut this tape back a little bit to allow, but it's not quite calloused over all the way there yet, so I am leaving that tape for the moment over the top. But here I've got, you know, 4 good trunks to choose from. Probably choose this huge one here, and the rest of this can become cyanwood for somebody. Some kind of fungus on the ground here. It looks kind of like a puffball type thing. Yeah, a bunch of dust came out. Probably something like a puffball. This autumn, the fruits aren't even coloring up yet, so it's quite variable. Some of them have been edible for 2 weeks, and some of them aren't even close. Chestnut here, pine bark showing some drought stress. These chestnuts all basically look like crap. I'm surprised any of them are still alive. I think this is pale purple aster or something. I can't remember what it's called. Pale something aster. I planted a bunch of those around the property. I haven't noticed very many of them, so that might be one of the only ones that's still alive. But here, maybe you can see, maybe you can't. These eastern red cedars, I planted a row of these, and they were probably 5 or 6 feet apart maybe when I planted them, and they've made a perfect screen here between my neighbor's driveway and my property. but the time has come. I'm gonna have to remove about every other one of them. So you see every other one is flagged for removal. And it doesn't always necessarily correlate to the best ones. You know, you kind of try to pick the better half of them. And so, but I'm gonna take every other one out, and that'll let these other ones grow up and not just go naked on their lower branches. So that'll probably happen this winter. So it'll be kind of patchy here for a couple years, but then those other trees will fill that space in, I think, pretty quickly. Some white birch. This one makes a lot of catkins and the other ones really don't. And I don't know if they're male and female expressions of the tree or if it's just an age and maturity thing genetically. But none of the other ones I've ever planted really make much in the way of catkins. But that one individual does. A couple little hazelnuts I planted this year. They're nothing to speak of. A couple older hazelnuts here that don't have many nuts on them, very few. This has got like some large singles. Let's see if we can see the color in here. So these things are hard to get open with one hand. You see a stink bug there. So that one is coloring up just a little bit. You could probably pick these, but maybe better to wait a week or two. This one has almost no nuts on it. I thought originally when I planted these they were beaked hazelnuts, but they aren't. There's some kind of a thread wasted wasp there. I don't know if you can see that. Real skinny. Looks like a Vespa. Here's that hazelnut. So yeah, the color is not quite there yet. Be a little better if you could wait another week or two. So I've got some butternut, heartnut hybrids. There's about 5 I think I planted. There's one over there. There's one here. And there's several hiding in this area. And there's one or two back here. I need to mulch those and give them a little bit better care because I'm excited about those. And I've got some new heartnuts, some new hybrids to plant, or some pure butternuts are what I got at the nut grower summer meeting. So I've got 4 or 5 of those to plant. This are grafted apples from this spring. I put some cages around them finally because the deer were eating all the leaves off of them. I've got oikos oaks here. I noticed that today most of the oikos oaks that I have seem to be more in the white oak family than the red oak family. They've got kind of rounded lobes. This big thicket, I think I talked about this in my last video, this big thicket of American plum had a few plums on it this year for the first time, which was very exciting to try. This tree, we spaded this out and moved it back here, and this had a few odd fruits on it before, but this year it had, I don't know, 50 or so maybe on it, or more. And so this finally caught that thicket for pollination and vice versa. So I'm going to plant some more. I got some more American plums to plant back here. So I'm probably going to start mowing a bit back here and, you know, kind of keep this wild thicket contained a bit so that I can differentiate between the plums that I plant and the plums from this thicket. Let's see if I'm just kind of winging this. I don't know if I'm going to find anything in this area, but there are some wild fox grapes growing. Oh yeah, here. See if I can get into this thorny mess without killing myself. These things are super good. These are what Concord grapes are bred from. They're probably not quite ripe yet because the Concords aren't really close to being ripe yet. I bet they're edible. Ooh, that flavor is good. They're quite a good sized grape. They'll get a little bit bigger and sweeter. But I've let a few of these grow around, and it's got a little bit of a burn in the back of your mouth because they're not fully ripe yet, and that could be some of the wildness too. It's not as bad as a riverbank grape, but there's a little something. But boy, do those have a good pure grape flavor. Here's an interesting leafed oak. This is wild. Squirrels plant all kinds of oaks around. You know, there's a few oaks in this tree line here. Could be the parents. But that's got quite a leaf on it. Okay, so get back over to my path here. This ponderosa pine has never really grown very well. It looks every year like it's going to die to me, but so far it's hanging on. I planted several more little hazelnut bushes in this area where these tree tubes are. You'll see me, I'm filling in. All these little tree tubes are hazelnut bushes. My oak savanna is what this area is meant to be in my concept, but I decided that It's coming together pretty slowly, so I'm trying to fill in a bit, and also, you know, plant things that are not necessarily large canopy trees, but, you know, shrubs that are complementary to an oak savanna. So this is the first year that this person has borne acorns, and they're cute. They're big. Those are pretty good size. Get my hand in there. But I'm not sure, something probably in the bur oak genre to have the acorns covered up so much with the caps. But yeah, that's exciting. This is the first year for these. I have to look at my map to tell you what this one is. Don't remember all these because they've not really done that much for me until now, and a lot of them still are not making acorns. So I think there are 2 or 3 out of about a dozen that have made acorns. This one ahead of us is a Bergamble oak. This has made acorns for a couple of years. And you can see these acorns here. They're so cute. That's kind of what these are looking like. And again, the leaf is probably, it's a hybrid bur oak and maybe Gamble oak, I'm guessing by the name. There's a decent amount of acorns on here, really, for a tree that's only been in the ground for 10 years. And I don't think this one has any acorns. I think I checked it a little while ago. And that one I don't think does either. That one got moved at one point because it was kind of growing in the wrong spot. So as we get to the southern tip of the property, this area here, it's got some evergreens filling in. That was originally my vision for the property, was to have a bunch of evergreens back here. As I've said so many times, my plans are changing. I'm going to plant a bunch of more chestnuts back here. And so these little white flags that you may or may not see, those are spots that I was intending to plant chestnuts last fall. The deal fell through for one reason or another. Something happened with the plants and I wasn't able to get them. So I prepared the ground. I have sheet mulches in those spots. So the sheet mulches are probably overrun now with weeds and dewberries and stuff, but they're, you know, basically better ground than average. So they're ready to receive a tree. So here's some nice fruit set on a red osier dogwood. These little white berries are not edible, but the birds do love them. They're kind of an adaptable shrub. They haven't grown super well back here, but that one looks good. And see, this one here is still flowering. They have such weird timing. You'll see, you know, simultaneously see flowers and fruit in the same bush sometimes. Here's an autumn olive that's got some good fruit happening. It doesn't, I'm guessing this is not really ripe. Pretty tart. Not very large either. I do have some good ones around. This is the end of my property. This hedgerow has been a bit neglected this fall, or this summer rather. Have not been able to get back here much watering, so things are looking pretty rough. I think we're going to see some die off. You know, these taller things here are nannyberries. There's a 9-bark, hazelnut, nannyberry, serviceberry, Nanking cherry, serviceberry, older Nanking cherry. So I'm confident that this, you know, hedgerow is going to survive. It just probably will need a little bit of filling in here and there. I have watered it 2 or 3 times this summer, but yeah, it's looking a little sad. Not much going on over here. The persimmons have not done that much this summer. Put on a little bit of growth for me, but I did mulch them pretty well, so I'm hoping that maybe that's going to pay off. This hazelnut, not chestnut, has a pretty good crop this year. It's got some big bunches, kind of heavy on the branches there. So I might want to give this one a name so I can put it into my evaluations and see how it stacks up. But I'm kind of impressed with the yields this year. It's looking good. This one here is a larger plant, but hardly has any nuts on it at all. So it's pretty variable from one to the next. I'd say most of them have a decent yield in a lot of years, but I'm probably going to want to, you know, pay attention to what's what. And if there are some that for multiple years don't have good yields, I should cut those down and just let them die off, because they're contributing poor genetics to the overall system here. So if we can keep the good ones and call the bad ones, don't call me an eco-fastest for that. That's just natural selection, kind of, you know, selective breeding, how plants get improved to have better varieties and things. Got a couple decent persimmons over here, tall one there. That's a wild cherry, that's not a persimmon. The downy sunflowers are about done flowering up here. There, you can sort of see the edge of this clearing. There were some. Yeah, this hedgerow doesn't look doesn't look that hot back here. Not much going on with the hazelnuts. Excuse me. This hazel's got some nuts on it. Let's see what they look like. Small, and a stink bug. Ah, gross. Splattered. It's not vegan, sorry. Well, it seems like when there are single nuts, they'll be larger in size, you know, because they're getting more energy than if there's a cluster of 6, say, like this single nut here. Overall, the size is larger than one that's growing in that cluster right there. But again, the color of it is pale. It's not really ready yet, so I'll throw that one back. Autumn olive here is tremendous growth on it, but almost no fruit. This hazelnut has a decent amount of nuts on it. I think this might be one that I flagged. Yeah, there's a pink marker on here. I flagged this last year as one to take note of, so I must have some notes written about that one from last year. Another red osier dogwood that's still flowering. Wild cherry that I've got to cut down. I don't want trees in this hedgerow. Another wild cherry, some quaking aspen. Got to get those out. An elderberry that the deer must have missed somehow. Oh, here we have little riverbank grapes. So this is what, you know, a typical riverbank grape looks like. They're just little BB things that are like the size of peas or smaller. And they have a grapey flavor, real sour. But you need to, if you make juice out of them, you have to make the juice and let it sit for overnight. And some of the nasty stuff settles out of it and makes it more palatable. So these downy sunflowers are done. No more petals really on them. These are pretty much done. You can see just the last remnants here and there. But these are a nice flower. I'm going to propagate a lot more of these. Used to have a lot more of them growing, but a lot of them got killed off during the power line deal. This one, just the odd one here or there. And one of the last things I want to show you, I'll show you this graft. This was done last year, I think, onto a sprout of the old wild pear that was here. So we can see there's sort of a whip and tongue graft down there. The deer have missed this so far, but this is a pear, and variety-wise, hopefully I made a note somewhere, or I'll just have to wait a few years and find out whatever that is. Could be my European pear, could be an Asian pear, don't know. But we'll know in a few years, hopefully. Just gonna walk up here and show you my grape. I lost the variety name. My grapes got scrambled up at one time. I had to move a bunch of them for the power line expansion. But I have one vine that's consistently done really well. I've kind of nicknamed it Vigoro because it's so vigorous. It sends out tons of growth every year, and it's pretty easy to propagate. I've propagated it from cuttings. Let me stop and take a detour, look at a couple hazelnuts here. That's a weird shape, very flattened. Yeah, so if I shook this, you know, there might be some that fall off, but these husks are not really coloring up yet, so I don't think that one's quite ready. This is a kind of a unique individual here. It's never grown very large. The nuts are of pretty good quality. I probably should cut down some of the serviceberry here to allow for more sunlight. So I guess there are a few burrs falling off now. So that tells me I should probably come and check this stuff and, you know, maybe start collecting some of these. It's about time. This one has some good nuts on it on the ends of the branches. I think this is the one I noticed that had very little. It's a large bush. It's sprawled at least 15 feet wide from side to side, but not very heavy bearing. So this one may be one to call out. I have to look at my notes and see if I can remember what I was calling that in years past. But some of the ones that are not productive maybe should mow back. Or it could be that they bore heavily last year, and look at this missing leaves. That's probably deer. Maybe they bore really heavily last year, and so they're alternate bearing. I don't know. That's why it's good to keep notes about things. So this grape, this is the Vigoro grape. My so-called, it might be Frontenac. I have to check my variety lists and see what these look like. But it's a purple grape, pretty good size, not huge, but quite tasty. You know, I've got some insect and disease problems here, but keeping this cage around it, means the deer can't get onto it, because the deer were eating the grapes when they were still green at 1 year. So putting this crude fence around seems to preserve it pretty well. And so yeah, I've got lots of cuttings that I've grown of this. If anybody wants copies of it locally, let me know. I'll have some here shortly as they start to go dormant for the season. I've got some in the raised growing beds. So yeah, that's what this garden is looking like on Labor Day. Thanks for watching. It's European hazelnut. I noticed it was dropping some nuts out, mostly in ones that were damaged by insects. This one doesn't have much in the way of a husk, so they have a lot of insect damage. Let's see if I just saw one. Well, here's not a very good one. It's a large nut, but you see how it's all black. That means the nut is spoiled and maybe didn't even form. So yeah, these are larger than any of the other hazelnuts I have here, but they're of poorer quality than all the other hazelnuts I have here too, for the most part, because they get so much insect damage. So I think having the husk is actually an advantage here in this site anyway. Maybe in this climate, all these nuts I'm looking at look bad. So yeah, it's an impressive bush, but unless I was spraying it, maybe I would get a better harvest, but not much right now. Okay, 40 minutes. Thank you for watching. See you next time.